Hi, I'm Senator Tom Garrett once again from the 22nd District, and this is our third in a series of weekly updates as to the happenings at the General Assembly here in Richmond. This week we had a number of things that happened that were meaningful. Crossover occurred this week. That is essentially the symbolic halfway point in the General Assembly session when all the bills are supposed to cross from the Senate side to the House side and from the House side to the Senate side. And sometimes, obviously, we have similar bills that pass each other in the night, but we're making good progress. Some of the things that we've done this week: Senate Bill 131 would allow for students from economically challenged backgrounds to have the opportunity to receive privately funded scholarships to choose educational alternatives that might better suit their needs. And we talked to that bill on the floor. This is about taking young people from neighborhoods where they're told that they don't have an opportunity to succeed, where they're told that kids from this neighborhood don't become doctors, don't become artists, don't become professors, and putting them in an environment where success is not only encouraged but expected. This is a bill about helping those less fortunate among us join those of us who seek the American dream. And so we were delighted to see that pass, albeit along partisan lines. Folks, this bill is a relative duplicate of a bill that's passed in Indiana, in Maryland, in New Jersey, in Florida. And in all these instances, and particularly in Florida where it's been there the longest, the bill originally passed along partisan lines. But after 10 years in Florida, the bill recently was refunded and the amount of funding dedicated to it was raised with bipartisan support, with support of the Black Caucus, support of the Democrats, support of Republicans, because it works. Achievement in public schools has increased following this implementation. Achievement in private schools and amongst those young people who are most at risk has increased. Everyone wins. It's an opportunity to create a better tomorrow in Virginia and a great step forward. Senate Bill 407 crossed over this week with its House counterpart, House Bill 1065. These bills on their faces were very benign, and they sought to consolidate water control, soil and erosion, Chesapeake Bay standards. But one thing that I'm very proud of is that our office was able to catch an omission in the text of this governor's bill. And what it would have done is included all localities in the Commonwealth to the strictest standards of compliance with the Chesapeake Bay and other good-minded legislation. And that's fine, but where these things shouldn't apply, they would have the effect of an incredible mandate on localities to spend and a burden on businesses, particularly in the home building and real estate sectors that are suffering. And so because we caught a drafting error, we were able to have the governor's Department of Conservation and Recreation insert two words, where applicable, to the bill, and in so doing save literally millions of dollars to Virginia localities. House Bill 277, we stood and voted against that bill. What did it do? It required localities that have cigarette taxes purchase updated machinery so that they can stamp their tax stamps in the same way that the state does. Well, it sounds fine on its face, but in these tight fiscal times, requiring that localities conform to a standard that's greater than what they already have to conform to costs money. And so that's something that we're very proud of, that we're working to ensure that no more unfunded mandates get passed down to our localities. Eminent domain passed this week. We spoke to that bill. Why do we need the eminent domain bill? Well, the Constitution talks about no takings by the government without just compensation, and it was understood until 2005 that this would mean that no private land was taken for a private use. And in 2005, the Supreme Court, an activist court, we would argue, overruled the traditional prevailing view of eminent domain and said we can take from private and give to private where the tax base would benefit. Well, folks, that's not what the founders intended, and that's exactly what this eminent domain legislation that we passed will address. It'll put us back to a constitutional base, to eminent domain and the understanding of eminent domain prior to the Kelo decision in 2005, and we're happy to have gotten that out. Senate Bill 674 passed, pro-life legislation that would allow the parents of a terminated fetus by virtue of an accidental miscarriage to have cause of action. We've read too many stories in researching this bill about men and women who have worked for years and years to conceive and then finally been given that gift of life only to have it terminated by the wrongful act of a drunk driver. The #1 cause of non-natural miscarriage in women is domestic violence. And so what this bill would do is allow a mother where her fetus has been killed by an act of another to have some civil recourse. And believe it or not, in Virginia today, that's not the law. Senate Bill 674 takes a step in that direction. And finally, along partisan lines, unfortunately, Senate Bill 6 passed. And Senate Bill 6 is something we talked about on our campaign. That is breaking the cycle of poverty by breaking the cycle of addiction. What Senate Bill 6 would do is take modest steps towards allowing the drug testing of some individuals who avail themselves of state benefits. And why is this good policy? We're not seeking to find people and incarcerate people. We're seeking to find people and where the cycle of addiction exists, breaking that so we can break the cycle of poverty. Find where the problems are and get people in treatment. Help people help themselves. And so this week, unfortunately, along party line vote, it did pass 20-20 with Lieutenant Governor Bowling breaking the tie. I'm delighted, as always, to have this opportunity to serve you here in Richmond. Look forward to hearing from you all. Encourage you to come down to the General Assembly and visit us. And I'll look forward to talking to you next week.